Hello, this is Kasha, none of your Borinsky from the game. I was calling because you make it sound like all I care about is potato, but I care about fuel made from potato. I just wanted to say I enjoy my encounter, but I do not exist.
That was Kasha, none of your Badinsky, played by Amy, my wife, in our T2K game that I played last Tuesday. You already had the recap of that. But conversation on another podcast on Jason Connerly's Nerds RPG Variety Cast with guest star Arlen Walker from Live from Pellam's Wasteland brought up something that I thought I should mention here and call out and ask for my audience, right? So T2K, at the end of T2K, I guess I've been troubled by this. At the end of T2K, I had some prisoners taken from the players. They had captured these marauders, and they got vouchers for them for the bounty that was on them, given by the elements of the Soviet Red Army that had occupied the town that they were visiting. And then these prisoners were taken to where there was a ditch being dug where there are a lot of other dead bodies of marauders in, and the Soviets just shot them, executed them right away, with protests, of course, especially from the one marauder who had picked up all the potatoes as he was asked, and threw them in the ditch. So I think I didn't really prep the characters for that kind of harshness, and I honestly don't know how they felt about it. No one has really given me any feedback, but I thought that it definitely touched on the moral codes of some of the players and some of the player well, maybe it touched upon for sure some of the moral codes of the player characters in the group, but it might have touched on the moral code of some of the actual players. So I guess I wanted to bring up that discussion. What Arlen and Jason were talking about in Jason's podcast was the idea of the X card, especially with their adult themes. And as I go forward with T2K, I probably need to have that available or talk about that, because it's a situation of war. And we know in war there are a lot of things that happen that a lot of us cannot stomach. And I would never, ever show those things graphically. Treatment of prisoners, treatment of women, especially by marauding groups or soldiers, but they would be implied or implicit or happen in the background. And how does that sit with the players, right? I need to establish that and talk about that. I mean, there are bad things that happen in a post-apocalyptic war situation. So anyway, it's a question to pose to you all and see what you think, and what you think I should do. Does it matter? What are we going to talk about? Do we have X cards in this game or not? Thanks for listening, and we'll get on with other topics not so deep on the show. A quick late night unboxing. I just got home from one of my gaming sessions, and I got this big box waiting for me on the doorstep. It is 14.5 by 14.5 by 9.5 inches tall. Now I'll use my handy dandy knife. Oh, it is from Studio 2 Publishing, the Mongoose Publishing. Nice. I kind of can guess what this is. Lots of bubble wrap for the cats to play with. And ooh, there's multiple secondary boxes in here. 2 secondary packaging containers, a USPS envelope. So they kind of package this secondarily in these UPS bindings. wow, there's a lot of books in these. Let's see. I should have just done that. There is a quick tear. I should have just done that for these inner boxes. And this first package is 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6 books. And this time, despite the rain, they're not waterlogged in bad shape. So yay, UPS. And these are, wow, there's a lot of books in this collection. So the secondary package, I'll rip that up too. And in this one there's a box set. So, wow, we have the box set, the Deep Night Revelation, with 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6 secondary books. All of these supplements to this. Wow, that is a pretty impressive collection of books. 6 supplementary books for the Deep Night Revelation saga. The Near Side of Yonder, Rift's Edge, Transit, The Crossing, Void Shore, Expedition, and The Far Side of Nowhere. This unboxing is pretty long, coming on 3 minutes here. I want to open this other box, secondary, or this other box. So the box says the Deep Night Revelation is in its own shrink wrap. And this is a fun box. It's 9.5 by 9.5 by, or sorry, 14.5 by 14.5 by 9.5 inch box. It's a great size for the cats to want to lay in. I can already see one cat eyeing it. So what's in the secondary box? Let's take off the shrink wrap. A lot of fun stuff for the recycle, I guess. And then this guy, let me open this box. There we go. In the Deep Night Revelation box itself, there's a, looks like a big map, Deep Night Legacy. These are all soft covers, or the other ones are hard covers. Terminus Point, Referee's Handbook, Campaign Guide, including a big giant map. The map is of the Deep Night Revelation on one side, and on the other side, whoa, the Great Rift. Map. It actually looks like a map of probably the whole expedition all the way out, which is pretty cool. Oh man, I love maps, so very nice, impressive. It'd be great to get it to the table one of these days, right? Mm-hmm. Very nice. So I want to talk more about the Deep Night Revelation product that I unboxed. And what it is a traveler campaign that is supposed to span in game time 20 years. So 10 years out and 10 years back. It focuses on an exploration ship that goes across the Great Rift and beyond known space as far as the Traveler universe is concerned, which I think is fascinating. It's up there, well, I guess I don't know how it was sold, but I think there were references to the legendary Jordani expeditions that were always mentioned in Traveler products and never codified, but it is something that is ambitious as that, at least in the verse, and it looks pretty fascinating. It's kind of neat. It kind of touches on what I like sometimes in a subgenre of sci-fi, which is sci-fi horror, and I'd be look forward to running it. Now, the cool thing is that it starts with some. I mean, it'd be definitely an investment for players and for the GM, but the cool thing is that there are some prologue Prelude adventures that exist, Deep Night Legacy and Deep Night Endeavor. Deep Night Endeavor is in the Great Rifts box set, and Legacy is in this one. And I have a Roll20 for it already for Deep Night Legacy, and I was going to ask someone who's interested in the game help me to make some pre-gens, and hopefully they will be able to recruit other people as well to play. At least play the Deep Night Legacy and see where it goes, and then try to jump on the Deep Night Revelation campaign. The cool thing about the Deep Night Revelation campaign is it could be conducive to like a drop-in, drop-out, because you're part of a ship's crew of hundreds, right? So you just, much like a Star Trek episode, and I think Star Trek would be great for drop-in, drop-out too, is that they just blend into doing crew stuff, right? Well, I mean, I'd like to run it, and any pointers from the Zeitgeist would be appreciated. And that's it. That was a really cool unboxing. It was really great to get that product. And it's a beautiful product. I mean, I think if I undid the map, the map is, I love maps and star maps, and there's actually like the traveler.com map thing that shows some of it shows kind of the highlights of the Deep Night Revelation expedition, but doesn't, get into the details, probably for spoiler reasons. And also the traveler map is more of a fan-based thing, and it's not always, most of it lines up with canon, but a lot of the stuff does not. Most of it lines up with canon, because canon has been around for a while, but some of it does not. And there is a warning in the Deep Night Revelation, just to be careful about it, that anything in there would supersede what's on the traveler map that's online. So anyway, I love the Travelerverse. I'd like to run anything in Traveler, but I am leaning towards Deep Night Revelation. I mean, I've tried to propose the Pirates of Drinax, but people are like, oh, pirates, I don't want to be bad. But it's not quite that cut and dry. I don't know. So we'll see how the Traveler goes. Deep Night Revelation. Man, it's like I get packages every day. I have another unboxing. So this is a box. It's a bigger box, like 11 by 17 by 2. It is from Lightning Source, which sometimes means drive-through, but I don't remember ordering anything from drive-through. All right, so here goes. That's a big box for small packages, wrapped in bubble wrap. And it is actually a Kickstarter that I did. It was like a short Kickstarter for a game by Russ Morrissey of N-World. And it is introducing the Awfully Cheerful Engine, a role-playing game of action comedy. And it's several books. 6 books. So it includes the first issue, and then like a Ghostbusters issue, Spirits of Manhattan, Strange Science, so like it looks like Kids on Bikes or something like that. Beam Me Up, so probably like a Star Trek parody, and then Mountain Drones of the Raiders of the Cutty Sark parody of Raiders of the Lost Ark. So it seems pretty interesting. Like maybe for a one-shot, we'll see how the mechanics go. It says it's supposed to be pretty easy mechanics. It's fun comic book style art inside. So, and they're all the size of comic books, all the books. So, pretty interesting. The Awfully Cheerful Engine, RPG of action comedy. I have another package that came in, like I mentioned, from Lightning Source. It's a little bigger and a little heavier than the last one, but still kind of a 11 by 17 by about 2 inches. And I shouldn't need a box cutter because it has like easy open. Oh wow. That's very surprising. It is the Aegis of Empire's Adventure Path compilation. And I had ordered the Pathfinder 2 compatible one. So very exciting. And I've gotten all the PDFs, and now I have the actual print copy. all in one big fat volume. So it's pretty heavy. It's about 547 pages. Another Pathfinder. It's cool. It's the first third party Pathfinder 2E game that I've seen, and it takes place in the world of the Lost Lands, so Frog God Games, Aegis of Empire Adventure Path. Looks pretty cool. So it looks like the awfully cheerful engine is kind of a simplified form of their Woen, what is old is new game system. So it looks like a small dice pool target number, and it seemed pretty simple. Character creation is very quick. It's ideally done on an index card. Sorry, Jason, I guess they're taking the ICRPG idea and using it for faster paced short form of Woen. So it looks pretty interesting. It could be fun to run the adventures out of there. I was reading through some of them, and it could be cool for one-shots or convention-style games. The other game, the Aegis of Empire, looked pretty fascinating, and I had tried. I like Pathfinder 2. I guess it hasn't taken off as much as other game systems, but I've tried to run a couple Pathfinder 2 adventure paths or adventure long-term thingies. I tried to do, I think the one with the circus, so the Extinction Curse, I believe is what it's called, and that is from Paizo, and it's a second adventure path after the Age of Ashes adventure path, and then they had the one that takes place in Absalon during the festival, which I can't remember the name of, and then they have two more short paths. One is a big mega dungeon, and the other one is like a higher level one. It starts at like level 11 or so, and it is like a martial arts tournament. And the other, I haven't tried those, but I have them. I still subscribe. I've been subscribing to Paizo Adventure Pass forever since they started, and I have like at least a big shelf full and a big box full of Adventure Pass that I'd love to run and haven't run. It's just hard to get an Adventure Path done. So I tried to start the Castle White Rock, and I actually ran one adventure in Castle White Rock, but it just seems like only 2 people were interested in playing, and that was cool, and we kept trying to recruit other players, but we ran the first adventure, and they each had like a character and a sidekick, and we got back to town and did some things, and they're going to go back out to, and they went out to Castle White Rock and kind of cleared the first level, more or less, and then they were going to go back, but I think they lost interest. So, it was like the prequel adventure, and then like the first level of White Rock, which I think is a cool mega dungeon, honestly. I think it's done by DCC Games, Goodman Games for 3.5, and I'd like to one of these days complete it. This is my second time trying to jumpstart Castle White Rock, and it hasn't worked, but I tried with PF2, and I think the biggest issue we ran into is that it's not quite backwards compatible like Pathfinder 1 was with 3.5, and mainly that's because of the magic items and the currency. It was like a switch to more silver piece economy as opposed to gold piece economy, so they pulled down the amount of money and wealth that you would accumulate, I guess. In general, in Pathfinder 2, there's someone came up with a table on how to fix that monetary discrepancy, but you still got to figure out how the magic items work, because they're kind of like, the magic items are very different in the way they're built in Pathfinder 2 than in Pathfinder 1. So it does take some finagling or figuring out, if they get this type of magic item, what does that translate to from old 3.5 or Pathfinder 1 to Pathfinder 2. So it's definitely a challenge, but I'd like to pick up another Pathfinder or re-pick up maybe Extinction Curse again. It's just, again, it's like I think that game suffered from COVID fatigue, and it just was on a Sunday afternoon, and it eventually just petered out. So who knows? nothing beats feeling down than playing games, especially role-playing games that you like to play with your friends. I've definitely been suffering from, I don't know if it's a clinical depression, but I've definitely been down and not wanting to do anything. Maybe it's like, oh man, I'm 51 and what have I done with my life this week? But hey, gaming has kind of pulled me out of it. You know, I ran the Twilight 2000 4th edition game on Tuesday, and actually my wife told me today, hey, for my birthday, why don't we continue that, because her birthday's coming up next week. So I'll try to get the band together and see if they want to do that. But I think that's pretty exciting that my wife, who doesn't play a lot of games, joined me in 2 games this week and wants to continue this new game that we tried. So I'm going to recap. It's probably a longer segment if I have enough wind in my voice, air in my voice to do this, but I did also play a game of Warhammer Fantasy on Thursday. That was Thursday the 22nd. And then off for a couple days, and then a crazy trifecta of games on Sunday morning. We did a session 0 for Arlen's Bonecrunch system hack of Blades of the Iron Throne, which in turn is a hack of the Riddle of Steel, which is one of my all-time favorite games. I actually ran a long campaign a long time ago, maybe in the early aughts, late 90s, early aughts, of a Riddle of Harn, where I use Riddle of Steel rolls for Harn Master, and we had some amazing vignettes. I still can think of some amazing vignettes from the games from that time and the campaign. So looking forward to what Arlen runs. I really, like Arlen said in another podcast, I believe, he and I have similar GMing styles, which I guess is a compliment because I like his game, so maybe he likes mine too. So very cool. Thanks, Arlen Walker, for that. So I'll talk about that. And then I played a game of D&D 5e in the afternoon that was in the Ravnica setting for D&D 5e. And then in the evening, I'll definitely go over that. That might be a separate segment. And that I ran, so I'll explain how I came up with the adventure. I actually used the random adventure generator that they have in the Deadlands book, and we ran a Deadlands game with our Sunday crew. So I'll continue here as best I can and talk about the Warhammer Fantasy game. Thursday was a continuation of our Enemy Within campaign, Enemy in the Shadows book that we are running, and the players had finally made it to Bogenhafen. There was numerous reasons they wanted to go there, one of which was to turn in and claim the airship of the doppelganger that they had found. So basically, they found a dead body that looked like one of the characters, and he had letters giving him an inheritance of great wealth, and a notary that said, this is a man that looks like this, and this is him. So, there's no facial recognition software and pictures of people or fingerprinting. So, hey, the player in the grimdark tradition said, yep, I'm claiming this. So they get to Bogenhafen. They find out where the lawyer is that has all the papers for this, and of course it is suspicious. It's in not a lawyery place, or not a normal place where a lawyer would be in the estimation of the lawyer in the party, who happened to be the changeling doppelganger person. So they get to this place. There's a clerk there. The clerk is writing something that says, oh, happy to see you, blah, blah, blah. And let me give these, I'll bring them right back. I'm going to give them to my, to the lawyer that's going to do all this paperwork. So he leaves the room, and then all the doors are shut and bolted. And someone calls out to the player character, who's the changeling doppelganger, and says, you're under arrest by order of their witch hunter order because you're a scion of chaos called this, that, and the other. So surrender or die. We're going to kill you anyway because you're a chaos lover. So players are like arguing with each other in character, not knowing what to do. It's a big surprise to them. But then they hear like the horse of the Elven Knight is going crazy outside suddenly, and they hear like a gut-wrenching scream and the tearing of something horrible happening, and then quiet. So eventually they break out of this trap. I mean, it's very easy for the Elven Knight to hack down the door. His horse is okay. They go to the back alley and they see 2 dead bodies. The body of the clerk, it looks like it had been flung against the wall of the adjacent building and basically thrown so hard that he smashed. He was smashed, broken back of the head. Not as gory as the person who maybe was yelling at them to arrest them, because that person was torn in half. So it was pretty gruesome and gory, which is par for the course in Warhammer Fantasy. And they did some investigation around, and it was more mysteries to solve, as it turns out. The Elven Knight also was a good tracker, so he did pretty well on his roll. So he found out some pieces of information, but it made it, again, more mysterious. Basically a footprint that seemed to be from something heavy, and it looked like a big human foot, but also clawed. It made no sense to the player, and somehow there are no tracks of this creature leaving. It just disappeared. Like it landed, killed these 2 people, and then gone. Poof. So the characters just contemplated and were a little depressed that they weren't like rich lordlings now. But hey, another reason to come to town was the Schaffenfest. This was a part of the goal of the group in the short term. I think that's a cool thing about Warhammer Fantasy 4th edition. It does, in order to get the party and be cohesive and have reason to be together, it suggests that you are rewarded for mechanically with XP, have short-term goals for the party, long-term goals for the party, and then short-term goals and long-term goals for each individual player. So there was a short-term goal for all the people concerned to track down and find the Elven Knight's horse that had been swindled away from him. And it's a really good player who plays the Elven Knight, and we had talked previously about, well, truly, as a knight, you get all these trappings as you advance, but he and I both wanted it to fit logically into the world, not just all of a sudden you get these things. And I think all the players then jumped in with that, such that, yes, you get these trappings, but it has to make logical sense, and I need to come up with a reason why suddenly, like the guy who was an advisor become duelist, now you get a rapier, and etc. The guy who was a villager turned boatman. Hey, you're on a boat. It's run by someone who's like your quote-unquote uncle, so you train here on the boat to become a boatman. So that's kind of what the Elven Knight, who was a little harder for him to do that. I told him that, well, we don't want to give you your horse because that gives you a bit more mobility. Back in session 0, he was cool with that. But let's incentivize you to find your horse, and this is how you lost it. And we came up with a cool story, and that's what we did. So, and then now when he goes from squire to knight, he gets a destrier, and we figured out how to get a destrier. Basically, he had rescued one of these big Clydesdale horses that drive the coach, and he's been training it, getting help with training, and now he has the opportunity to even get more help to train this horse to be more of a war steed and not just a big stagecoach, horse. Although those Clydesdales are just as strong and big, so and have a great endurance, so it could definitely work. But he's playing along, and we're trying to find a logical reason. I'm not a horse trainer, so if you are a horse trainer and there's no way that could happen, let me know, and he and I will come up with something else. So anyway, so they're at the Schaffenfest, and they're looking to find the horse because they think that this is the best place to find. There's a livestock market, and there's a zoo, a menagerie. But other things intervene while they're at the Schaffenfest. And this is another great thing about this group and this Warhammer Fantasy game, is that at different times, different players are shining. And I like that. So this time, the villager turned boatman got to shine, and he got into a wrestling match. It was basically, it was like one of those, like a rope-a-dope type of thing where you pay some money and you go in the ring, and if you last X amount, then we give you money, but it's really hard to do. Because and definitely in this case too, the champion was a brute built to deal out a lot of damage and take out anyone, especially relatively novice players. Although they've had already one, they've gone from like their first career already to like a second career. So I guess they would be seasoned if you were to equivocate this with Savage World parlance. So he gets in the ring, and then it is a cool thing about dice sometimes, and the way dice rolling in these games tell stories, because the dice were with my friend who played this villager turned boatman, and he has some brawling skill, don't get me wrong, but it wasn't as good as this guy, and I was rolling poorly, and I roll on the table more or less in front, and I don't fudge rolls, and he was just beating this guy, but this guy was really tough. So he's like, oh my gosh, I'm beating this guy. I keep getting my hits in. I'm faster, I guess. But he's not doing much to this guy because the guy had a really good toughness, which mitigates damage in this game. And then the guy hit him one time and nearly took out half of this guy's wound level. So he was like, oh man, hopefully I'm lucky, can finish this quickly, or at least I can last. At this point, he was like, at least I can last through and get the money. So, and then he did win, and he won impressively. Basically 2 rounds in a row, he rolled critical hits against my failures, which made him do a lot of damage and then get to roll on the critical table. So the first critical, he ripped off the guy. So they're like wrestling, sort of wrestling, boxing, UFC style. So the first crit, sometimes the crit tables are strange and we try to make sense of them. The first crit, he ripped off the guy's pinky, and it goes flying, out of the ring, and kids are running to get a souvenir of it, and the guy's bleeding, and then people are calling to call the fight. The players are actually, because they feel like they're generally good people, are trying to have the hawker or the scam artist of this whole operation call the fight, but that guy doesn't want to do it. They keep fighting, and then the player rolls a crit again. This time he rolls even higher and more or less rips the rest of the fingers off or damages them so much that they are in danger. And this guy bleeds, bleeding everywhere, falls unconscious. And this, I think, is where it shows how my players are generally trying to be good people. As the guy is like running away with the money because he doesn't want to pay up, some of the players go to grab him and stop him. The other players go to make sure that they don't accidentally kill this poor champion now who's bleeding out in the ring. So they do. They're able to heal him. They recover the money. They take their earning and they actually give part of the earning so that the characters can take this poor, now ex-champion wrestler to a temple of healing. So I thought that was pretty cool. And that was actually only part of the session, which is crazy. Another cool move is that when, and to help them just get out of the scene and the situation, when they caught the guy who was trying to run away with the chest of money, they basically took their money from the chest and then tossed the chest back at him. He dropped it, money spills everywhere, the crowd goes crazy and tries to pick up all the money. The watcher calls and the characters kind of slip away, half of them taking this poor man that they injured to near death to the Temple of Healing, and the other two kind of wandering around to search for the missing horse. So something did happen in between that, between the last scene. So one of the character knight, he found out about that they were going to do jousting. There was going to be a joust between a visiting duke and his entourage against the local lord and his entourage. and he wanted to get in. It didn't seem like it would be possible, but I had him, while just wandering around, I had him secretly roll a set of dice. I noted what it was. Eventually we came back to it, and he was noticed. So he's actually noticed by someone who's a servant of the son of the Grand Duke. They're about the same build because the son of the Grand Duke is not a bulky human man. He's kind of tall. Some would say more bookish, more artistic, more of a dandy. And this elven knight, tall and lithe and strong, kind of could fit his build. So the proposal is made for the elven knight to take his place in the jousting, which could be cool. And we figured as a reward, then the elven knight could then, this was myself and the elven knight's player, mutually came up with this idea, well, if he does well, then he can get his trappings that he is owed as a knight. He might be able to get his horse trained through this situation, and then make a very powerful ally if he does well. Whether the deception works or not, there's ways that he maybe has thought of, at least I have thought of, what happens if he gets caught, what happens if he doesn't. So it's a pretty cool situation, and it's another way that I think this game is so rich, and there's so much detail and background, and the thing is, like, some of the people have played in the Warhammer Fantasy world and played in my previous campaign, which was Terror in Talabheim, which is a big Skaven, which are ratmen incursion from below that overrun this town, and the players happens when the players are there and they become part of the group to free the town or the city from this incursion. So some of the players were there and played it. There were some players there who are known about the old world for such a long time, but this player is actually new to it, and it's really neat that because of the richness and the tapestry of this world that we at the table have helped to create, I feel like he understands it, which is kind of neat. So I'm lucky I have good players. I guess that's the bottom line. Well, so after this, players met up. They free a dwarf from the stocks and get him some beer. Then they hear about the zoo, and they had heard that maybe the zoo had some exotic animals, so maybe this would be the place. I decided previously that it was, but I didn't want to drive the characters there. It's always fun to let the characters go where they will, and eventually they got there, which was very cool. So I guess in Jason Connerly parlance, it was a railroad, but the players didn't know it. Anyway, so they get to the zoo. They have some encounters. They don't particularly care for the people there. This three-legged goblin escapes temporarily, and the characters catch it. So they're able to get in early to see the zoo. Well, they thought they would get in early, but in fact they were just allowed to get in free and go to the front of the line. So one of the caretakers of the zoo, quote-unquote, animals or displays or whatever you call it, kind of duped him. But that's okay. They didn't like him anyway. So these creatures are trotted out. It is definitely one of these sort of displays that you could see these animals are mistreated, and some of it is fake and false. It's a big sham, and they see, or the Elven Knight sees his horse. It has been mistreated. They've glued a horn to the top of its head and pretend it's a unicorn, which is a homage to the last unicorn. If you don't get that. And then the player said, "Yeah, we're doing something here." So they concoct a plan. I basically ran it as a dramatic test, skill challenge, however you want to call it, where characters asked them what they wanted to do. Some incited the crowd, some snuck around the back, some did other things, and we went with it. They ended up freeing. So they ended up freeing the animal. There is a quick melee. Oh, I guess it was all instigated. This craziness was instigated because the goblin bit one of the handlers and bolted off. It caused a commotion, and the characters took advantage of it. they said, "Oh, this is our chance." So they did confront the zookeeper while they were freeing the horse, and took care of him. Like basically knocked him out. The character who had won in the wrestling match got him with an armbar across the face and neck and knocked him to the ground, more or less stunned him, and then they bolted. One of the characters was able to corral and calm down the horse, which is a pretty cool, neat role. I was going to have them, or I had planned to have them try to chase the horse throughout the Schaffenfest, but hey, the dice were in their favor. So very cool. They got the horse. They retreated to the Duke's compound, so they couldn't be pursued. But we'll pick up from there the next time, where then now it seems that they will get a mission from the organizers of Schaffenfest, maybe the town of Bogenhofen, because now there's this crazy, dangerous, three-legged goblin mutant running around town. So we'll pick it up. Oh, and then there's a joust in a couple days, so it'll be a fun next session that we will pick up in 2 weeks. Command decision here. I'm going to talk about the 2 games that I played in the morning and afternoon first, and then talk about the Deadlands in a separate episode, I believe, because I want to talk about the process and what I rolled to create the adventure, and then talk about what happened in the adventure in grave and gory detail. So we did a session 0 of Blades of the Iron Master. Well, not really Blades of the Iron Master, Iron Throne, whatever, which is a hack of Riddler's Steel, but it's Bonecrunch, Arlen Walker, live from Pellam's Wasteland, his hack of those types of systems. And I thought it was really neat. It looks like a really good group of players, and Jason Connerly and I and others have been part of this morning. For me, it's 8 a.m. Central Daylight Savings Time, 9 a.m. for Jason, and we did this so we could play with people in the UK or Europe, and it looks like this group is going to be pretty cool because there's someone from Italy, some people from the UK, some people from the US, and it's really neat. And it's basically a sword and sorcery game, it seems, where we are exploring a new land. So it's like a colony of the Empire that is at the edge of a new land where they're in the jungles or in the wilderness. There's the ruins of ancient civilizations, the promise of great treasure and much fortune and glory. So we're going to do that. My character is a departure from other characters that I make. I usually make a beat 'em up or a ranged specialist. And in this game, I have made a roguish type. Not quite true. I guess I made a roguish type for the Warhammer Fantasy game. But he's a human rogue, grew up in the mean streets in the Imperial capital. And I just kind of built him that way, more of a skills guy, I hope, than a fighty guy. And what's neat about this kind of game and the Riddle of Steel is you have some motivations or passions, as they're called in this incarnation. And so briefly, my passions are that, and I have some back history. The most important, I think, is that he has an enemy gang, and the leader of the gang killed his lover, and he is out for revenge. That's one of his passions. But these are an enemy that are going to be dogging him and trailing him. So hopefully Arlen can incorporate that into the narrative and the fiction, which I think he will pretty well. He's also easygoing, so no one takes him seriously. Yes, that is a disadvantage that can be in this game. And he is prone, because of his tragedy, to dark melancholy. So every time the game starts, we have to roll this dice and see how I'm acting, how I'm doing, and it gives you a penalty on some dice, especially dice related to interacting with people. So that was pretty neat. His other passions are the ecstasy of gold, So he definitely wants fortune and glory. Glory is going to come from his other passion, which is to be the best thief ever. And then the other passion is saving his own skin. So as long as I run faster than the other guy, I'll be okay. So that was the session 0. Arlen explained the game system in the world, and I think it's going to be pretty neat. The other game I played in, although I was somewhat distracted by a family situation, but hey, that's resolved. Cool, somewhat. But it was I played in Kevin Madison of Dungeon Musings, the Dungeon Musings Empire, Media Empire as it's called, and we played a game of Ravnica, a D&D 5e that he is running. I play a barbarian minotaur who is a Path of the Berserker archetype. I don't know if they're called archetypes, I can't remember, but he is of the Gruul clan, Burning Tree subset of the Gruul clan, and in this session it was not a lot of action, but we built up to a cliffhanger. There was a lot of time spent getting to meet each other and getting our mission, and Kevin outlined the mission and what the parameters were. There's this artifact or tower underneath Ravnica in the underbelly that has some odd markings implicating my clan and a couple other clans that doesn't or seems incongruous with the current state of affairs. So we want to explore it. We start going down there, and then Kevin ended with a cliffhanger where we were attacked by... So the Gruul are very disorganized and chaotic, and there's a lot of infighting. So there's definitely some Gruul that don't want to be in on this mutual project that the other guilds are in. So some of the Gruul, another Gruul clan, a rival Gruul clan, attacks us, sends some boars our way. I stand my ground and intimidate this brush of boars called the Gruul Welcome. But now we're probably going to fight. Oh yeah, and then I guess they drove this strange creature towards us that is not reminiscent of anything Gruul, this giant frog beast that we now get to fight. And that will be the next time. So those are the recaps of the first 2 games that I played on Sunday, and I'll just end here, and thank you all for listening. Thanks, Amy, for the call-in in character. That's great. Very excited to continue and play the Twilight 2000 game and all these other games that I outlined. So we'll talk to you next time.